Hi, Jen.
Hi.
I'm Sarah. This is our first time meeting.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And Jen is here because she's running for town council in Yarmouth, and I collected some questions. I put a blurb out on both YPA and on One Yarmouth, and asked people what questions they would ask all four candidates. And so I know I shared with you and other candidate who's interviewing tonight what some of the questions were in advance, and let's just dive right in.
Let's do it.
Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, great. So Yarmouth's comprehensive plan identifies a need for about 1,200 lower-priced housing units, a mix of owned and rental for cost-burdened households, and another annual demand of about 6 rental and 24 to 50 for-sale units. And this is really needed in the comprehensive plan states to support the diversity and really, right, the economic diversity of residents through various life stages. What strategies would you employ to address this? And also, like, how do you philosophically balance these like competing demands of people who are really in dire need of assistance, people who can absorb with little impact on their activities, and people who are kind of in the middle and really concerned?
Mm-hmm. Super important. Thank you for the question, and thank you for doing this. I know
You're
it's on your own time, and it's important, so thank you. What I'd like to do is take the second part of your question first.
Perfect.
And I say to myself, what are we actually saying when we talk about Yarmouth? Do a little Google search, right? You'll get I source my information from the main center for, when you find it, I want to make sure that I get it right, because I think it's an important context.
I appreciate
From
that,
the-
because like, loose groups are one thing, but when you have the specifics, right, we've got data available.
The main Center for Economic Policy
Mhm.
will say, oh, the median income in Yarmouth is $110,000.
Mhm.
And I'm a physician, I'm a data scientist. I want to run because I believe data can really help advance plans. It's very bimodal, right?
Mhm.
In other words, you look at the economic income in Yarmouth, 42.6% is under $100,000 a year. About 30% is between 100 and 200,000 a year, and about 30% is 200,000 plus. So I think it's really important to say, when we think about planning, what is Yarmouth? Who is Yarmouth, right?
Yeah.
And who's here, and how do people feel seen and participate in life here,
Yeah.
ability to live here.
Yeah.
So that is sort of the frame for how I
Mhm.
think about my answer. And one thing I would say is I like that the town has a North Star, has a number, right?
Yes.
Something that we can anchor to.
Yeah.
Where I go right to is that number right sized for the infrastructure that we have?
Mhm.
In other words, North Star, 1,200 units. Great. Do we have the infrastructure to support that?
Yep.
And when I say infrastructure, I break it into two pieces. One is people, and one is things, physical assets. What does that mean? It means schools, it means buildings, it means sewers, it means service. So this reminds me of like when you build a business or you have a plan, you kind of start with a grand plan.
Yes.
Right? We're going to build a widget and then we're going to take it to China. But when you really start, we're going to sell there to 1 billion
Right.
customers. When you really start thinking about that funnel,
Yes.
it starts to get smaller. So I love that we have a North Star.
Mhm.
And my plan here would be to articulate what is realistic given the constraints that we have from an infrastructure point of view. And then I think we start to talk about the piece that is actionable. And we're probably going to end up smaller now, and that is okay. And if that answer is no longer 1,200, it's now 800. We're saying, well, what kind of housing would we like to invest in? And there's a real balance there, because we need to be the most pro-family town in the country. I don't think that is too ambitious.
Mhm.
Right? With lots and single-family homes, you get a bunch of kids,
Yeah.
which means you get a bunch of students.
Yes, as a
Which
teacher.
is, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Right.
fantastic.
Mhm.
And all of those pieces need to balance. So that's the approach. I tell you this to tell you how I think about
Yeah.
making strategic choices for where we ought to head, which means how things might be zoned, what the timelines might be.
Mhm.
It also really feeds into the concept of what is the philosophy here, right? The philosophy here is to make sure that we do three things. I mentioned my first one, which is to be radically pro-family, and I mean all types of families. I mean even to the unit of the neighborhood that sometimes stands in for a family.
Found families. Right?
Oh yeah, Don,
Absolutely.
my neighbor, 81 years old, has taught me how to garden in the
Yeah.
last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right, broadly defined. So what does that mean? We're going to build housing that's radically pro-family, which means streets are slow, it's walkable, it's safe. We want to build for aspiring or returning, right? The 28, maybe they're 30, 31, that first baby. We want to build probably denser, smaller housing than we're accustomed to having. And those comes from policy decisions.
Yes.
It doesn't come out of nowhere. And then we want to build with a real baseline commitment to dignity for people in our community, to reduce suffering, isolation, chronic stress that drives a lot of health and well-being. Gets back to who is in Yarmouth, right? 9% of Yarmouth is technically in the poverty category per the Maine Center for Economic Policy. 14% of kids in Yarmouth live in poverty. That's 1 in 7. How do we build for preserving a baseline dignity for people who are suffering hardship, our older residents who deserve the respect and dignity that come from that? That's the country and the town I want to live in, and that's how I frame my decisions.
Yeah. So there's another philosophical layer to this, that one of the things when I look at sort of online town conversations is this idea of, right, if we're building and if we're investing tax dollars, right? And so this gets towards a governance question that I have. But what I'm thinking about is this idea of, if you need to invest tax dollars in housing, some people are suggesting that that's not the role of the town, to say that some people's taxes should be subsidizing other people's housing. And I wonder how you would respond to that.
This is like a tricky issue, right? And it's like the hardest, thorniest issue around the lack of investment in housing for 10, 20, 30 years that we're now living. I think it is a fair criticism. I see my tax bill came in, which I was a day late paying, and I did not love it. But I also see the need to balance reality for people who are on a fixed income, have seen a big increase, and can't sustain that to stay at home in their community where people are healthiest. So while I agree with the premise, and the premise in many of these sort of 30,000-foot views are correct. I don't want to pay anybody else's taxes.
No,
absolutely not. It does not feel like something I want to do. I think our town has been pretty smart in how we're trying to temporize here. The stay program is a smart and right and good idea, and we need to take a hard look at how we're designing and funding this community going forward.
Thank you. And thanks for jumping into what is a tricky, thorny, which is part of why we're here having the conversation, because this is a situation that we're in and some of the decisions that we're going to have to make. And so thank you for that insight. And so on that piece, so Yarmouth operates under a shared accountability model with a legislative town council, a town manager who, when I looked it up, oversees 85 full-time and many part-time staff, as well as attending all the meetings of the town council, providing research and policy, drafting support to the council, and then the third branch, which is us, right? Like the voting public. And so within the structure, what do you see as the role of a town councillor, and what can be reasonably accomplished? It's a 30,000 foot, right? Like if you had your magic wand is one thing, but
I think that's the most important point, is that no one town councillor has a magic wand. That the question is really not what can one town councillor do, right? It's what can a town council do when it's populated by people with the temperament, work ethic, history of service, approachability, and thick skin to lead. And that's the team that I want to be on.
Okay.
So the question for me is what piece would I contribute as a member of that team, wanting to model the most effective behavior I think a town council should display. For me, I just jotted a couple down because I want to make sure to get to them. One is do the legwork to make better decisions possible.
Mhm.
And that's on behalf of and in partnership with our town staff.
Yes.
I think people on a council, they bring a whole bunch of life experience that is deeply relevant. Again, not knowing exactly what those relationships look like day to day, I would favor a closer partnership, particularly where we have council members become sort of the local expert on that area.
Yes.
Right? If this was like a U.S. Senate, you'd be on like a committee, right? You'd be like, I'm on the infrastructure committee. Right? Is that scaled down $60 million budget version?
Yep.
Right. How do you become the local expert accountable to that? I think one thing a good town councilor is going to do is rectify disparate data and develop the sort of shared set of facts and evidence to support decisions.
So you and I both have a lot of background with data. Can you say what you mean by disparate data?
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, and I think it's really important because I think it drives these types of decisions and some things about communication I want to talk about.
Right.
People will say, oh, I make data say anything. Yeah. But when you train as a scientist, right, and you take care of individual people and populations over now decades, I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm into my second decade, right? As a physician, you think very clearly, you try to think as clearly as you can about what data can inform the choices you make and what are the data gaps that need to close to make better decisions.
Okay.
So when I think about disparate data, the first question you go at is, how is the data collected? From what population? And what is it big enough to test what you claim? Is it big enough, right, to support the claim that you're making? And we may have inadequate data. We may have imbalanced data. We may have a complete data void, which I expect. A lot of the time I expect that.
Yes.
And that is okay. So let's talk about those. Because I think if there's one thing a cardiologist does well, that's my medical field, is try to make the best decisions you can with incomplete data on sometimes very short timelines. Yeah. So that I take the same approach the approach I take at work is the approach I take in my family. It's the approach I would take to being a counselor. So.
Thank you. Yeah. On that piece, so again, philosophically, so I really like to think about what your approach is because we don't know the exact questions, right? They're going to be coming up.
Right.
So with a budget, and in a year specifically when the town revaluations, right, hit, this is conversational. What do we do with the budget? And so if you think about sort of the three different places you could go, stabilizing the budget but maintaining, right, 3% cost of living, but staying generally with what we have, current level services, versus keeping the budget number the same, which in effect is reducing services because you're not adjusting for the benefits, cost of living, and increasing the budget to plan for future needs, which historically I would say has been a miss. When Wyman closed once upon, years ago, that there really was a need to think about the future, but those counselors were faced with their own problems of the moment. So, quarterbacking, hindsight.
It's the best Monday morning quarterback. It's the best job.
Exactly.
I want to be on that team.
Right. So, what would you? What's your approach on this? What's your thought?
Yeah, it's an important question, and I want to frame this by what a crossroads we are at. Right. So we need a new town manager. Yeah. We need a new development director. We don't have a stable chamber of commerce, and we are going to have, I believe, an interim at this point. I don't know if committed, but at least new superintendent.
Yes.
At this point, right? Yeah. So those are big, important sort of leadership spots where we're at a crossroads. How I think about operating under those conditions doesn't really fit any of the categories. Right. So the first way I think about this,
I tried.
No, thank you. But is to say we're going to stabilize and we're going to grow. And where I want to push first is on our operational efficiency. I don't know, right? I don't know as a person living in town if we have really optimized and thought as creatively as we can on those topics. So on my website, it's montiffortowncouncil.com, I've put there what I think is a reasonable North Star or hope or goal that we can get an 8% reduction in operational efficiency in our school budget over the time that I would be a counselor. And the two very specific ideas I've placed there relate to regionalization of some services, back-end services. I say to myself, gosh, do we really need to own these?
Mhm.
Do we really need to own these to have the local control that we want? And I think we have to think hard about that.
Yeah.
There's also regionalization. These aren't new ideas. Fire, police. What can we do there to just get some of the operations more efficient and not sacrifice at all? And in some instances, improve how we can respond to public health threats like fire and safety. And the one that I'm deeply excited about is thinking about the energy audits of our schools. So Efficiency Maine will come to your house. All right, they'll check your window, they'll do all this stuff and save you money, and we know that it works.
Yep.
So I modeled the size of our schools using some economic modeling tools to say, hey, what savings would we likely enjoy if we were to go through an auditing process? So I've learned in dozens of conversations this week that our school's planning for an audit, which can be done for free.
Yep.
Question is, how do we then fund the necessary kind of upgrade,
Yep.
right? Low, moderate, high, to then realize those savings.
Yes.
So I get quite excited to think about mechanisms for that and unique ways to fund that, to enjoy the sort of ROI on that investment that we know will come. But I don't want to get stuck on the first step of what's going to cost us some money to invest there. That I'm not willing to get caught there when the value is clear.
And the 8% came from the economic modeling. Is that how did you was it just? I think 8 sounds good. My guess is 9.
I know. I started to look at what we could reasonably expect on that one particular project.
Okay.
Right, if we were to go out for all the schools at a medium level, not we'd have to implement everything and not completely low end over a period of time, and then considering some of these other areas. Again, I haven't run for anything since 7th grade. Right? I am not like a town hall insider. I tried to read the budget line by line. It's a lot of acronyms.
It's a lot.
It's hard to get into.
Yeah.
So that was I think it's really important for leaders to sort of try to set a North Star. Yeah. Maybe you meet it, maybe you don't. Maybe in our group of town council, they say, Jen, you're nuts because you didn't know about this, this, and this. And that is okay.
We're learning, right?
I am okay with being wrong. I am not okay with not articulating ideas and solutions. It's quite easy to just sort of call out the problems.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's get in the arena.
Yeah.
And let's talk about it transparently and in public as often as we can.
And also in that way, be able to lift those sort of solutions, right, and ideas in public, have that openness, which gets to, I think, where you may have been heading, communication.
Yeah, I think that is certainly part of what's happening here. And we hear a lot that, we don't have enough transparency, right, on what's happening. Or talk is cheap, right? It's easy to sort of throw out, ideas. So I want to start with sort of really 3 principles about how I think about communication. Is we need source credibility, both as citizens, right, as individuals, personally responsible, and as town leaders. We need try where you can to source a publication date, right, and try where you can to anchor what you say in supporting evidence. And I think that goes a really long way. When I think about what we might communicate as a town, or what we might receive from citizens, it's just really important that we understand who's created information, what is the goal of that information, and where we can to just sort of feedback and correct where necessary.
Yes.
And where it's not necessary, right, where information is watertight, be grateful for it and incorporate it.
Right.
And be humble enough to do that.
Because the data comes from everyone, right? Our own lived experiences become data points.
Right. And how we evaluate each of those,
integrate,
make good decisions on behalf of our little town, that's the job.
Yes.
That's the job.
So over the past year or more, I've seen the FAQs and other pieces, right, on the town website that I believe has made the work of the council and how decisions are made more open, more understandable. And at the same time, right, you look at the town-related Facebook pages that I mentioned where I source the questions from, indicates that, right, more might be needed. How might we best get information to and from the community to clear up the confusions and misinformation? Like, how might that happen?
Yeah, I think we need a community standard, right? We want to hear all speech, but what we want to do is pause, verify, compare, engage, and promote truth.
Okay.
Right? And as a tiny, I think we had 9,000 person town, right? Yeah. We sort of hold each other to that shared standard in a community, and I think things will improve.
Okay. And
Can I also
oh yeah,
just add one
please,
thing?
please.
As a town councilor, I don't, and as a human, I try to really not engage in sort of nonsense that
Yes.
does, bad information, partial truth, things that are there to stoke anger or fear or clickbait. I kind of respect people too much. I respect their time too much and my own time too much to engage in that.
Mhm.
So that's my commitment, sort of as a person here, and I'd ask people to hold me to account on that type of thing.
Yes.
Because I want to be better than that.
Right.
We live in a small town. The internet's a hellhole. Forgive the language.
No.
Right.
So,
Let's meet in person, take down the temperature, and just solve problems.
Yep.
One by one.
Yep. I think that is a good advice, and I will take that to heart.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
Certainly.
I tried. Not perfect.
No. Right there
No.
with you.
No.
And you mentioned all speech, which brings sort of this last
Yeah.
question, which is there have been public conversations about the idea of inclusivity. And they've come up in around different issues in town, different ideas. How do you determine inclusivity when you're talking about being, this idea of the most family forward, right? That making sure that we are pausing and verifying the information that all people bring us. Like, how do you think about inclusivity?
Yep. I think it's. I love the term inclusivity, and the way I think about it is to say, can everyone realistically participate, belong, and influence what happens here?
Mm-hmm.
Are people feeling respected, valued, heard, and able to participate fully? There's sort of three categories that I've heard about this week about what it means to live in Yarmouth and fully participate. One is related to being in a wheelchair. So we're making sure that our places are accessible. Another one is feeling like they aren't welcome as a full participant because they're not currently working. Like there was some sort of economic stigma on participation. And a third was on being recently divorced. That sense of welcoming community is important. And these are sort of three groups of folks, different people. And then I read one thoughtful comment online where somebody mentioned being deaf. And it made a really important point. They said closed captioning was invented, right, for this community, and now everybody benefits.
Yes.
So we really need to think that these are not exceptions, particularly on areas of accessibility. When we design for communities, make sure that we have the inclusivity. It actually raises all the boats. I believe that deeply.
I do too. I mean, that's like my sort of philosophy in education, right? Is that when we plan for the most at-risk students, what we're really doing is increasing the environments and the success for everybody, right? The chances for success for everybody.
I've seen that repeatedly in medicine and science. When we invent for a narrow niche, it ends up, there's always cross benefit. Questions, of course, fair questions are always cost and time and resources, and that all needs to be worked out. But as an anchor for inclusivity, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll say, I was divorced in this town when my children were still small.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the preschool pickup and saying, can I live here?
Yeah.
This town feels so, at that moment, my experience had been so two-parent households. And this idea of what a family looks like. And I really wondered how my children would feel and how I would feel parenting and living in this community. And it's worked out well.
Yeah, good. I'm sorry that you had to feel that.
But I worry. So
grateful.
So when you said that question, that's a real question. And I'm glad that you're able to be engaging with people to get those data points to bring to your work. And good luck on your campaign.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.